Hey, welcome back. I'm Aspiringspike. We're playing more Pioneer this week. Before I get too into the deck, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about the format and some of my thoughts and how I arrived with this spicy 75. There have been some exciting changes. Oko, Thief of Crowns, and Nexus of Fate have been banned from Pioneer. I think that this is a really good change to the format. I think both of those cards were warping the format to some extent, where it was really hard to play powerful mid-range creatures because they would get turned into outs, or your opponent would take infinite turns and could just ignore your 5-mana 5/5 Scarab God. But now with those cards being banned, really does open up the format to otherwise powerful cards being able to be competitive. So my initial inspiration for this deck, I was playing a Grixis Fires deck, and the idea behind this was you would play Fires of Invention, and you could play like your Nicol Bolas or Jace or something and get some immediate value off of it. And then on turn 5, you could play your Scarab God and activate it immediately. And I felt like every single time I was able to play Scarab God on turn 5 and activate it the same turn, it was one of the most powerful things I felt like I could be doing in Pioneer. But then I thought to myself, what if instead of Fires of Invention and Nicol Bolas, we were playing green instead of red and played Wilderness Reclamation and Frilled Mystic, and that would give you, not the restrictions that Fires gives you, would give you access to more interaction and counter spells. So, just jumping back to this list, this is what I came up with. The three cards I really wanted to play initially were Wilderness Reclamation, Frilled Mystic, and the Scarab God. I think these three cards work really, really well together. Wilderness Reclamation, letting you untap all of your lands and activate Scarab God multiple times, even on the same turn, is so powerful. It feels like one of the best mid-range game plans you can employ. While I've been playing with this deck, and I've had a lot of success with this deck. I think I'm 16-4. I 3-2 to league, 4-1 2 leagues, and 5-0 to a fourth league. I just felt like every time I have Wilderness Reclamation and the Scarab God in play, what I'm doing is more powerful than anything my opponents are doing. And so these two cards play really well together. Wilderness Reclamation and Frilled Mystic plays really well together, being able to play this on turn 3 with Growth Spiral or turn 4 without it, and hold up a really powerful 4-mana counterspell. I like to think of this card as using your Snapcaster to flash back a counterspell. Really, really, really powerful to be able to play a 4-mana 3/2, counter their play, and then block a creature, get a nice 2-for-1 with Frilled Mystic. And then, if you can trade off your Frilled Mystic, it plays really well with the Scarab God. Being able to return a creature that can counter a spell is just such a powerful combination. So I think these three cards play really well together. I think that 4 Wilderness Reclamation, 4 Frilled Mystic, and 3 Scarab God is about the numbers for that package. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the other cards that I brought into this deck to play around this 3-card package, and then we'll run it through a league and see how it goes. Alright, let's go over the lands first. This was a deck that was kind of difficult to build the mana for. I think that it could be tweaked a little bit as time goes on. The mana has felt good to me so far in playtesting. I think that you want to maximize on your breeding pools and your Hinterland Harbors, because the hardest cards to cast in your deck are Frilled Mystic, Growth Spiral, and Abrupt Decay. They have the strictest mana requirements. So making sure that you can cast your Frilled Mystic seems like the most important thing to me. We're definitely a blue-green deck splashing black. So we're maxed out on the breeding pool. We're maxed out on Hinterland Harbor. We're playing 1 copy of Lumbering Falls, which plays well with Wilderness Reclamation, being able to animate, attack with it, and untap with it. I've liked 1 Hinterland Harbor and 2 Castle Vantress as utility lands to sink your mana into with Wilderness Rec. I would like to find room for a 4th utility land. If you did, I think that it would probably be the 26th land. If you did, I think it would probably be the 3rd Castle Vantress, because this card is so powerful, even just by itself, and with Wilderness Reclamation, its power level gets spiked way up. But time will tell whether or not we really need that 4th utility land, And I think if you want the 4th utility land, it should probably be land number 26. Again, we're a blue-green deck splashing black, so we have 2 Overgrown Tombs, 4 Watery Graves. I think we need more blue than we need green mana with these double blue counter spells, so I've gone with a 4-2 split here. I'm playing 3 Drowned Catacombs and 2 Woodland Cemeteries. Again, more blue requirements than green requirements. And again, the mana's felt pretty good so far. Moving on to the 2-drop slot. I think that you really want something to cast on turn 2 every single game. I think that if you construct your deck in a way that you aren't really going to start playing Magic until you cast your Wilderness Reclamation, you're going to lose more often than you should, I think, with an archetype like this. So I've chosen to play 4 Abrupt Decay, 4 Growth Spiral, 3 Censor. Growth Spiral is the card I think ideally is what you're casting on turn 2, so you can turn 3 Wilderness Reclamation and untap and play, another spell. But I think you really need to find something to play on turn 2 in basically every game. I think that Abrupt Decay is the best removal spell in the format. I'm really high on this card, and I'm really low on Assassin's Trophy, as I've said in other videos. I think Assassin's Trophy is not very good in Pioneer. I think almost every deck makes really good use of the extra mana you provide with Assassin's Trophy, and casting it on turn 2 I think is going to put you in a pretty big disadvantage most games, and I don't really like my 2 mana interaction to be not good on turn 2. I think Abrupt Decay is great, and one of the best things that it kills is Teferi Time Raveler, which I think is the best card against this archetype because it means you can't use your Wilderness Reclamation mana for spells. I'm playing 3 Censor, which is a card that I haven't been super high on in Pioneer in the past. That being said, one of the reasons why I wasn't super high on it was because I thought it was very bad against the Wilderness Reclamation decks, the Nexus decks, because they usually had a bunch of spare mana when they were untapping, and it was not a very efficient counterspell in those matchups. So with Nexus of Fate being banned, I think Censor gets a little bit better. Also, just being interaction that you can play on turn 2, and also a card that you can cycle, is really good in the deck with Wilderness Reclamation. So I like 3 Censor. I could even see playing a 4th. If you played a 4th, it would probably be, you probably would play 4 Censor, 2 Sinister Sabotage, which seems totally fine. I'm playing 3 Sinister Sabotage. I do like having a high density of counter spells. I'm not 100% sold that this is the correct number, but it's felt good to me so far. Playing 4 Brazen Borrower, which is a card that is really strong in this deck. It's got a lot of cool synergies. It is interaction that you can have on turn 2, which I think is really important for this deck. Having all the extra mana for Wilderness Reclamation, you almost always get to Petty Theft before you Brazen Borrower, which isn't true of other decks that play Brazen Borrower. Sometimes you just don't have the extra 2 mana to Petty Theft, but in this deck you always do, basically, if you have your Reclamation, and it's another creature to bring back with your Scarab God, which I like. One thing that is kind of a bummer is you can't return your own creature with Petty Theft. If you could bounce your own Frilled Mystic with Petty Theft, this deck would be even better than it already is. But that being said, I think Brazen Borrower is really good. I think that I would not play less than 4. Already talked about Wilderness Reclamation. Just to touch on it a little bit more, I think a lot of people are used to looking at this as a combo piece, but it's really not in a deck like this. We're not trying to take infinite turns with Reclamation or cast at a huge expansion explosion. What this card does do is generate a ton of mana. It doubles the amount of mana you have, which is incredibly powerful. And I think the card is really good, but I don't think you should be looking at it like a combo piece. You should be looking at it as a resource engine that generates mana. I'm playing 2 Nightpack Ambusher. I've been really impressed with this card. Its stats are great. It's a 4 mana 4/4 flash, and at the beginning of your instep, if you didn't cast a spell this turn, you make a 2/2 green wolf creature token. And one thing I really like about this card is you go to your instep, you stack your Nightpack Ambusher trigger, you stack your Wilderness Reclamation trigger, and then you float a bunch of mana, and then you can get the wolf, and after the wolf is in play, you can start casting spells, Dig Through Time, Growth Spiral, another Nightpack Ambusher, whatever you want. And so its ability is almost never going to be off. The only times you would cast a spell on your main phase would be to put a Wilderness Reclamation into play, or to cast a Scarab God. And if you're doing those things, you're probably not too upset. And it's also another creature, again, to get back with Scarab God. I'm playing 1 Torrential Gear Hulk. I think you could play more, but I don't really think that you ever want to draw 2 copies. And with 3 Dig Through Times, it's pretty easy to find your first copy. I think the first copy is very good. And again, I think you could play 2, and that would be totally fine. I'm only choosing to play 1 right now. Still pretty early in the deck building process, but again, this card's great. It's great with Dig Through Time. It's great with Sinister Sabotage and Abrupt Decay, and you can flash it back with Scarab God. 3 Dig Through Time. I think that this is the best card in the format. I think this is the most likely card to get banned next in Pioneer. I think you are very, very incentivized to have Dig Through Time in your deck. Going over the sideboard really quick, nothing too crazy. We're playing a lot of the hyper-efficient 1 and 2 mana interaction and 3 Noxious Grasp, which this card is very, very good in Pioneer. I have 3 Noxious Grasp in basically all of my black decks right now. 2 Aether Gust for more green hate, but also good against the mono red decks, which are popular. Playing 2 Negates, 3 Mystical Disputes. Countering Teferi is really, really important to Teferi Time Revelers, so I do like having Mystical Dispute. I like Dispute a little bit more in this deck with Growth Spiral. Being able to turn 2 Growth Spiral, put a blue source into play, Dispute is a really good tempo play. And 2 Negates. So this is kind of our counterspell split here. 2 Scavenging Ooze. I like the versatility of this card. It's good against graveyard decks, and it's good against aggro decks because it gains life. And with Wilderness Reclamation, you can untap a bunch of mana and sink your mana into your Scavenging Ooze. I also think Scavenging Ooze is a pretty underplayed card in Pioneer. I've had a ton of success with this. I think it's incredibly powerful, and I think this is a main deck card in a lot of decks. And 2 Tireless Tracker. That's kind of a value card for various control and mid-range decks, and 1 Pithing Needle as a catch-all for various Planeswalkers and Heart of Kirans and Thespian Stages. So that's the deck. I'm really excited about this one. One of the funnest brews that I have put together in a long time. Hope that you guys enjoy it. If you do, you should hit the subscribe button or follow me over on twitch.tv/Aspiringspike. That's where I do most of my Magic content. I stream Monday through Friday from about 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So hope to see you there. Okay, so we're on to play for the first match of this league. Full disclaimer, I started recording a different league, and then the sizing on my window was off, and there was like an inch of my desktop on the recording, and then there's like an inch of the gameplay not on screen. So I dropped from that league, and we're in this one now. I'm going to keep this hand. It's not ideal, but we do have a Censor to cycle, and if we can cycle into a blue source, then we have, Decay and Sabotage up. We can play just kind of a fair Sultai flash deck before we find our Wilderness Reclamation. Getting Thought Seized. Kind of interesting what they decide to take. I kind of hope they don't take our Censor, because we need to cycle this, but there's always the risk that they take the Censor and we just rattle off a couple of lands, and then we are left with our good counter spells. Does not seem to immediately be the case. Ooh, Satyr Wayfinder, so probably a Traverse Shell. I've seen a lot of people messing around with Traverse the Uvenwald, Graveyard Synergy-based black-green decks lately. They all look really fun. They put a Llanowar Waste in their hand. Would love to find a blue source off the top. Maybe you should have specified untapped, but I'll take it. Don't think I'm very likely to Abrupt Decay the Satyr Wayfinder. I've done crazier things. Our opponent does have Delirium too here on turn 3, so if they have traversed the Uvenwald, they can find whatever they want with it. Golgari Findbroker is a pretty cool card. In the same cycle as Frilled Mystic, all the guilds in this set got 4 mana creatures with this casting cost that were pretty pushed, but also like restrictive casting costs. And I think Frilled Mystic is certainly, I think it's the best of the cycle, but Golgari Findbroker is pretty good too. 4 mana 3/4. When it enters, you return a permanent from your graveyard to your hand. Our opponent does have Traverse, and they can get probably almost every card in their deck. I'm not sure what they would get for 2 mana. They could get another Satyr Wayfinder if they really wanted to, or they could be setting up a play for next turn, maybe like a Tireless Tracker. I don't think that they're going to go ahead and get their Emrakul this early. Don't think that they're going to get a land, because they have a Llanowar Waste in their hand. They have their land drop. Seems like they don't know what they want either. They get their Emrakul, a little early for that, but is certainly very strong in this matchup. I think Decaying the Ballista puts another type in their yard, but I also think it's kind of just where we're at. So they have 5 types in the yard. I mean, it still costs 8 mana. So a ways away. So we know they have an Emrakul and a Llanowar Wastes in hand. Another tap land. Awkward. But we do have Sabotage up this turn. We have Frilled Mystic up the turn after that. Lands are good draws and spells are good draws too, so don't mind our spot here. It's possible that we can put, pressure in play with Frilled Mystic and then counter the Emrakul and have our hand, have it be where they can't really disrupt us too much with the extra turn effect. I do find that counter spells, sometimes you can counter the Emrakul, and there's really just not that much they can do to mess you up, depending on your draw. And then the trigger of take an extra turn or control your opponent's turn doesn't actually matter that much. I remember back when this card was in Standard, I played a blue-red control deck that really frequently you would counter their Emrakul, and then your hand was all counter spells, and there was really no way they could interfere with you. So Emrakul actually ended up just drawing you an extra card after you countered it, and ended up being like favorable for the person who it was cast against. Ooh, Castle Garenbrig makes it a little bit easier to cast Emrakul. Lots of Castle Garenbrigs these days. There's a really popular mono green ramp deck that makes use of this card very well. Would have really liked to sabotage something and make this dig through time a little bit cheaper. If that doesn't happen, I guess we hope that we draw a land. While our opponent is thinking, because we can look at the sideboard a little bit. The Scavenging Oozes seem particularly good. We could bring in Pithing Needle for Liliana, the Last Hope, if we really wanted to. I imagine Aether Gust is fine. Maybe some number of Noxious Grasps or Tireless Trackers are going to get brought in. Could flash in Frilled Mystic for no value end of turn. If our opponent makes no play, I think that I will. We have a handful of counter spells, and our opponent has the inevitability to some extent because they have this Emrakul. Like we need to pressure them. If we just wait until they cast this Emrakul, we're not going to have a good time. I'd like to at least be ahead on board when this Emrakul gets cast. I do like drawing a land there. Every land we've drawn has come into play tapped. Pretty awkward. So I guess this is dying. It's getting swift ended, which doesn't go to the graveyard for to put an instant in the yard for Emrakul. Although they have 6 of the 8 mana they need for Emrakul right now, which is not very good for us. And if this Atlantic come into play untapped, we'd have Dig Through Time up right now. Thoughtseize is annoying. I kind of think we need to counter it. Although if they... We'll let it resolve, because if they take Gearhulk, that means that we get to cast Dig Through Time. And if they take Dig Through Time, we still have the Gearhulk. If we couldn't cast Dig Through Time after this Thoughtseize, I don't think that I'd be very likely to let it resolve, but the fact that they kind of just have to take Dig, and then we can maybe just top deck a land and Gearhulk the Dig and still keep both of our counter spells, I think that has a good amount of value. They do take the Dig Through Time, which I felt like they were pretty priced into doing. Thankfully, Murderous Rider doesn't count as an instant and creature in the graveyard for Delirium. And I will go ahead and sabotage this, mainly because I really want to be able to find a land for next turn. An untapped land, so we can hold up Gearhulk. Gearhulk Sabotage or Gearhulk Dig Through Time. Nightpack Ambusher is kind of enticing, but I'm just gonna graveyard it. I would rather draw a land. Dig Through Time would also be a decent draw because we could dig and still hold up Sabotage. Abrupt Decay is not what I was looking for. Probably one of the worst draws we could have found here, to be honest. Opponent did miss their land drop last turn, something I missed, but it's good for us because they have an Emrakul in their hand. I would have rather drawn Nightpack Ambusher than Abrupt Decay here. I'll counter this. I think that they're pretty likely to get a untapped land. Thank goodness, a land with this. If they get like I doubt that they would have a like Temple of the Forsaken Gods, but if they have a way to make extra mana for Emrakul, that would be really bad. And they run out of Tireless Tracker without a land drop. So yeah, maybe they were intending to get like a Fabled Passage here or something for their Tireless Tracker. So this is working out pretty well. Now we get to Gearhulk and Dig Through Time. Our opponent is still cost 8 mana. If you don't know, this is something I didn't know until someone in my Twitch chat told me. But in the top right hand corner, it tells you how many card types are in the graveyard. So Emrakul still costs 8 mana. They have 6 with their castle. So we're in no danger of Emrakul being cast this turn, I don't think. And we're going to get to Gearhulk and Dig Through Time, ideally into like... Ideally, one of the cards we find is a counterspell for Emrakul. Could just Gearhulk block this Satyr Wayfinder. Yeah, I think our opponent realizes that that's something. But we're just gonna cast Dig Through Time with this Gearhulk anyway, so really no reason to run in the Satyr Wayfinder into that. All right, looking for like maybe counterspell plus Dig Through Time. 6 lands in a dig, not ideal. The Dig Through Time was good at least. Let's go ahead and cast that. I'm going to leave Nightpack Ambusher. Or no, I'll leave Frilled Mystic to get back with Scarab God. I think that's a little bit better. Okay, so there's a Frilled Mystic, and then we can either get a Nightpack Ambusher or a Wilderness Reclamation. I think I like getting Wilderness Reclamation, and that way we can start Castle Vantressing. That'll make any Scarab God we find a lot better. Our opponent still needs to find a land to Emrakul us. We'll need to be mindful. Like maybe we can just scry a land to the top if they Emrakul, and then they won't be able to draw something that'll really screw us up, but I guess there's not even really that much they could draw. Like if they draw a counter spell that doesn't do anything, Abrupt Decay doesn't do anything. Like we don't have cards in our deck that remove a Torrential Gearhulk or Failed Mystic, so I'm feeling pretty optimistic about our spot here. It started off kind of rough, but it's gotten better. Okay, so they Abrupt Decayed their own Satyr Wayfinder, so Emrakul is coming down this turn. Can't actually Castle Vantress and Frilled Mystic, so we'll see what happens. I'm not too scared of this Emrakul, which sounds kind of crazy as the blue mage, but usually Emrakul is one of the best cards you can play against a blue counterspell based deck, but I think we're gonna win this game. Whenever my opponent holds priority like this and I don't immediately get the ability to counter my opponent's spell, I'm worried that I'm F6'd, but I'm pretty sure they're just holding priority here for whatever reason. All right, opponent. I'm just trying to think of what our opponent could find to really mess with us, but like Brazen Borrower doesn't even bounce our own permanents. You know, one of the most effective things I think our opponent could do on an Emrakul turn is play a spell from our hand and then counter it. But we don't have, you know, a spell to counter. They probably should have castled on our upkeep. It seemed like they didn't have a stop, but I think that stopping on our upkeep and seeing that we had nothing probably should have castled here. I doubt that they want to cast the Scarab God. Yeah, they just conceded. Cool. Alright, so we're up a game against Black-Green Delirium. I'm going to bring in 2 Scavenging Oozes for sure. The Abrupt Decay seemed good against their Tireless Trackers and Lilianas. I think that we want all of those. You can kind of see Brazen Borrower going. It seems like they have Liliana the Last Hope, and they also have a lot of permanents, it seems, that gain value when they enter the battlefield. So what if we cut all of the Brazen Borrowers? Maybe we leave like one in. But Aether Gust is also a card I think I'm interested in. Most of their cards seem like they're green, and I do just like Aether Gust as an interactive spell. Could also bring in the Pithing Needle, potentially. Though I might be okay leaving it at home. One Negate doesn't sound terrible, but I do think most of their threats are creatures. Could maybe trim, since we're on the draw, 1 Censor for 1 Brazen Borrower. This looks okay. I'm not... Oh, whoops. Got my foot caught on my HDMI cord. Almost unplugged my monitor. But again, I'm not super familiar with these lists. I think that they're still being tuned. I'm not sure that there's really a stock version of these Traverse lists. Another kind of awkward hand with this mana. I'm going to keep it. Our opponent's mulligan to 6. We have Aether Gust. We're very likely to be able to Frilled Mystic on turn 4, which again is this card is really, really good. This is like pretty above rate for a creature-based counterspell, and it's very efficient at what it does. And the reason why it's balanced is it's a very restricted casting cost. And if you can cast this card, it's going to be really good for you. Our opponent traverses for a swamp on turn 1 after mulliganing to 6. Plays a... Oh, I exited the swamp because I assumed they were going to play that, but they played a Blooming Marsh instead. They play a Scavenging Ooze, which we can hopefully point an Abrupt Decay at. I don't think I'm very likely to point an Aether Gust at it. No land in the top 2 cards of our library. We'll find a Black Source eventually. We can let this be a Grizzly Bear for a couple of turns. I'll either guess like a Satyr Wayfinder here. Don't think that they're going to play a card like Grizzly Salvage. I haven't seen any Grizzly Salvage in these lists, although I don't think it would be bad. They played a forest instead of the swamp we knew about. Yeah, I'll go ahead and guess this. Alright, Black Source off the top would be really good. They put the Satyr on the bottom. Man, mana troubles in both of these games so far. The mana felt pretty good in my earlier testing. I don't know if we're hitting the low end of the variance stick now, or if perhaps I was running hot in the past. Any land off the top is going to be a good draw. We don't have any lands that only tap for black, so any land in our deck is going to come into play untapped right now, and it will let us cast a Frilled Mystic. Oh, Golgari Finebroker for no values. It seems like a very good play. Although, we can't cast any spell in our hand. We kept these 3 lands in our opener, right? And we just missed on 4 draw steps. Kind of tough, but that's just going to happen sometimes. Yeah, it might just be 2 behind, stumbling here. We shocked down to 7. This isn't even a black source. We're going to do Flash and Frilled Mystic and block the Scavenging Ooze and give them a zombie. It's going to go to game 3. Yeah, that was tough. Seeing Scavenging Ooze and Cletus does make me like Brazen Borrower a little bit more. Although I'm not sure what I'm cutting. Could maybe cut the Nightpack Ambushers. I could see these getting a little outclassed in this matchup. Yeah, let's bring in a couple more Brazen Borrowers. Alright, let's run it like this and go ahead and go to game 3. Okay, I like this hand well enough. I basically keep any hand that has Growth Spiral on turn 2, even a hand that has a lot of lands like this. We have a Castle Vantress to help mitigate a flood potentially. Vantress is so good in this deck. So good. I'm getting Thought Seized. I imagine they take the Growth Spiral, but maybe they want to protect like a Scavenging Ooze or a Liliana Tireless Tracker from the Abrupt Decay. That looks like what's happening. Land off the top is not ideal. I mean, certainly the risk you take when you keep a 5 land hand, but I do think that this was a keep. Just gonna cast this now in F6. Not really good sequencing to do it in response to something like a Satyr Wayfinder, but that's where we're at. Get the F6 value. Drew another land. Our opponent missed on their Satyr Wayfinder, so neither one of us is running particularly hot. And there's a Sinister Sabotage. Huh, it's not actually showing me how many card, like usually, we talked about this earlier, there's a little box that says how many card types. I don't know why it's not there. I can count for myself. There should be 1, 2, 3, 4 types, but again, just kind of weird that it's not showing me and was showing me earlier. I do like Sinister Sabotage as a draw here. Ooh, Castle Locthwain is quite good. I wish that we could play Castle Locthwain in this deck, but I don't think we can play Castle Locthwain in our Frilled Mystic deck, and also the Life Loss would stack up pretty hard here. Love to find like a Scarab God on the top, dig through time. Not a Hinterland Harbor. I am glad we get to put that in the graveyard. Would be very upset if there's another land on top. Yikes. Certainly the risk you run when you keep a 5-land hand. Kind of the opposite problems, just classic Magic. Missing land drops, drawing too many. We do have lots of, you know, Mana Sinks and Castle Vantress and Scarab God if you get flooded in this deck. Maybe our opponent will cast a Thoughtseize. That would be good. Maybe they'll stumble on lands because they missed with their Satyr Wayfinder. No. So now it's this card type. So I guess a spell, or a spell that cares about card types in Yard triggers this in the same way like a Storm counter gets triggered. I do like their play of casting the Tireless Tracker. So if we like castle into a way to deal with this, then they get to Golgari Finebroker it back. Do I want to draw Brazen Borrower? Kind of. It is something to do with my mana next turn. It's not the best draw. A Scarab God or a Dig Through Time would be better draws. I think that it's fine to draw this. This is going to slow our opponent down a decent amount and put a pretty real clock on them. It's going to stop them from being able to castle Locthwain very effectively. I have some reason to think our opponent doesn't have a land. Although it looks like they did, or at least they drew one. Alright, so Dig Through Time, even a Wilderness Wreck to just start scrying every turn to make sure we never draw another land would be good, and that is what we find. That is what we find. So yeah, Wilderness Wreck plus Castle Vantress means we're very unlikely to ever top deck a land again, which has a lot of value. Especially if we can scry into a Scarab God, that would be ideal. I'm not seeing any reason to castle on our instep. We can just wait. I would love for my opponent to draw Thoughtseize. We know they have a Golgari Findbroker in their hand, which can get them back a Ballista or a Liliana to deal with this Brazen Borrower, but that is quite slow. And if we can find a Scarab God, we're going to beat them with that. I have a really hard time thinking our opponent can beat a Scarab God off the top from us. Don't think there are going to be too many answers to this Reclamation either. I personally don't like Assassin's Trophy very much. I don't think it's very good to play it. I was going to draw a card, probably hoping to top deck a land for their Tireless Tracker. Looks like they didn't hit. I imagine a land would have already been played at this point. A Courser of Krufix that gives them another look. There's a Duress on top. I do like them drawing Duress. Oh, okay, so they had a Fabled Passage. They just want to gain a little bit of extra life. Kind of surprised to see that. But it's very good for them here. They even get to shuffle away this Duress, which isn't a very good draw at this point. Doing it now, so if we find a removal spell... Oh, and they shoveled into a Reclamation Sage. Yikes. Well, I guess we have like just one turn to find this Scarab God. And if we find it this turn, I think we're going to win. And if we don't, I don't think we are. So... we can also Dig Through Time into a Scarab God if we see one of those on top. So let's do that. There's a Dig Through Time. So let's draw that Dig Through Time. Clear land. Don't have any trackers in our deck right now. So we have 8 mana. So we can spend... we need to delve everything if we want to cast Scarab God. So... ideally, we see one here. We're not guaranteed to find one, of course. We did find one, thankfully. So I want to take the Scarab God and an Abrupt Decay. Any order that. play out our Scarab God. So they have 6 card types, and Emrakul costs 7 mana? So we could think about exiling the Walking Ballista right now to stop them from being able to Scarab God. We can also put counters on this Walking Ballista, which is kind of cute. Alright, so yeah, so now they can't Scarab God unless they hit a castle. I am bummed that we're gonna lose our Wilderness Reclamation, but I also think we're pretty ahead on board, and them being black-green, I imagine they're light on exile-based removal for the Scarab God. There are some copies of Vraska's Contempts floating around in Pioneer, but not infinity copies or anything. We can get back Kalidas with Scarab God, and then we can put a counter on Ballista, kill the Satyr Wayfinder. Although that does mean that the creature isn't going to the graveyard anymore, so we can't reanimate things. They go ahead and draw a card. They're going to draw Satyr Wayfinder. I would love for them to cast a Satyr Wayfinder with a Scarab God in play. Yeah, they milled over they put an Overgrown Tomb in their hand, and they put a Scavenging Ooze in the yard, which is something I would like to draw. And you have to imagine they're going to cast the Reclamation Sage with the rest of their mana here. Oh, you know what's funny? If we kill something, if we get Kalidas back and we kill something, then we get an extra zombie for the Scarab God's ability. It's kind of funny. Okay. So Reclamation down. Let's go ahead and get back the Scarab God. Or sorry, get Kalidas back with the Scarab God. And then on our upkeep, I think we get back Scavenging Ooze and Abrupt Decay Tireless Tracker before the Scarab God's trigger resolves, just to get an extra point of life out of the way. Did not think this interaction would come up. Alright, so we get to scry 4 and deal them 4. I'll go ahead and bottom all of these and just draw the Aether Gust for a little bit of interaction. And attack with everything. We can also eat a card from their graveyard, although they only have 4 types in there right now. I guess that does mean they're 1 mana away from an Emrakul. Not that I'm sure they could... I'm not sure that an Emrakul would beat us here. I don't think that it would. Every time they block here, we get a zombie. So they're going to take 8. Yeah, so Emrakul doesn't do it here because they just die to our Scarab God trigger, which I don't believe is a May. Yeah, it's not a May ability, so if they cast Emrakul, they just die to the Scarab God unless they gain life off of this Courser. They have to gain 2 life. They have to hit a Fabled Passage. Why don't we go ahead and just put a stop on this draw step and think about Aether Gusting this Courser. Okay, there's not a Fabled Passage on top. Trying to think what we could lose to. Like a Casualties of War wouldn't do it, but maybe something like Finality. I mean, that doesn't even do it either. So I think the most likely way we lose is our opponent has a Fabled Passage in hand, and they play it, and they Emrakul us, and they survive, and then they can like attack the Scarab God into the Emrakul, and then exile it with our Scavenging Ooze, and then just try to win from there. I don't think that there's really a way for our opponent to get out of this, but But I think I liked gusting there. Our opponent has conceded, so we won. It was a very long match 1 of this video. We were super flooded that last game, and Scarab God just totally took over. Alright, I'll see you guys for round number 2. Alright, so we're on the play for match number 2. I'm going to mulligan. Keep this hand. We're going to put back a land. I suppose we're putting back basic island. You have really good mana in this hand. I'm not going to leave up a cycle of Censor on turn number 1. If we had wanted to do that, might have put back the Watery Grave and not spent the 2 life. Another black deck, another Swamp Thoughtseize deck with the white bordered 8th edition lands. Yeah, taking Frilled Mystic makes sense. Don't love drawing a land here. But again, kind of like how we saw in the last game, we have a lot of ways to mitigate a flood. Seems like our opponent is respecting Censor here. I'm going to go ahead and just draw. Yeah, runner land. Kind of the same problem we had in game 3 of our last match, even though we were able to pull that one off. Certainly just something that's going to happen in every Magic deck you play. You're always going to have some games where you draw too many lands and some games where you draw not enough. I'll cycle the other one here. Don't hate drawing Growth Spiral. So we can Growth Spiral into Dig Through Time. Seems like a good turn. Let's go ahead and play Hinterland Harbor. Yeah. For a second, I thought maybe we needed to have played Forest, but we can just. Oh no, I've miscounted. We can't actually dig into. We can't actually Growth Spiral into Dig. We're 1 mana short. Pack Rat is also kind of a weird one. I forgot to even comment on this card, but I'm not super high on it. I don't think it's really of a high enough power level for Pioneer. It's be kind of bad against our Scarab Gods and Brazen Borrowers, I think. Weird our opponent does not immediately make a rat either. Alright, so this turn we can dig. We can potentially dig into a 2-drop. Shout out to Avatar Hippo, who is following me on Twitch now. You guys can follow me too on twitch.tv/Aspiringspike. Let's go ahead and dig now. Might want to Abrupt Decay this Pack Rat if we find one. I am very interested in this Scarab God. I don't love that we didn't find any 2-mana interaction. So we're taking this. I guess a Frilled Mystic. We could also take a Night Pack Ambusher and just try to outpower our opponent. I kind of like taking the Ambusher if we draw an interactive spell next turn, like a Sinister Sabotage, we can go Ambusher and hold up Sabotage, or potentially if our opponent finds a Thoughtseize, we just have 2 powerful plays to make next turn. So I guess we're going with that. The Pack Rat is, now that we didn't find a Brazen Borrower or an Abrupt Decay off of our Dig Through Time, the clock is real. They get to, turn Mutavault into a rat. They could attack us for 10 here down to 9. Maybe we get outpaced by it. Certainly Pack Rat is good against an opponent who's stumbling. Although it looks like our opponent's going to take the turn off of making rats, which is great for us. So they turn Mutavault into a rat to deal us 6. Love to draw a Brazen Borrower or Abrupt Decay. Cool. So didn't quite find it on the Dig Through Time, but came through for us in the end. So we'll play our Scarab God, and then we'll have the ability to Abrupt Decay the original rat, and then we can, maybe even start making rats of our own. Yeah, I don't think that we're gonna Abrupt Decay the Underworld Connection. Because I don't want my opponent to be able to Nykthos out 2 rats, and then they didn't draw a card. Opponent's making some kind of strange sequencing plays, or maybe misplays. Gifted Aetherborn. Curious. Now, usually when you have a couple rats in play in a Mutavault, you should just be spending all of your mana to make a rat. Although I guess that this is kind of free because they can Nykthos and make 4, 5, 6 mana and then make 2 rats. Curious indeed. A Gray Merchant. Okay, let's go ahead and not take the full amount. Let's just go ahead and decay the Aetherborn, and then that's going to hit us for 6. Big swing. Big swing. Although it is nice that we can get back the Gifted Aetherborn and gain some life back. If they have a second Gray Merchant, I don't think that we're going to be able to beat that. We'd have to like draw an Abrupt Decay or a Brazen Borrower. Let's go and get this back now. Get that scry going. I'd probably keep an untapped. Okay, I'll keep a Sinister Sabotage. That seems worth it to me. And can we afford to shock to have the ability to Nightpack Ambusher? I'm not sure that we can. I think we're very, very likely to sabotage. Although maybe not. Like if they just make rats, we're gonna need to ambusher. Yeah, I think I've convinced myself. I would love to kill this Gray Merchant, and Scarab got it back. Pretty cool game. Haven't seen a. This looks like a pretty traditional mono black devotion deck, very similar to the standard version that was really popular while it was in standard. The more common mono black devotion shell has been vampires based, and I even think that most of the list have moved away from Gray Merchants. Maybe it's possible with Oko and Nexus of Fate. Build like this is better. Okay, so they're making 6 mana with Nykthos. If they have another Gray Merchant and we get to sabotage it, it's going to be really good for us. I guess we need to sabotage that. This could be bait. This could just mean they have another Gray Merchant. Yeah, I think I'm going to let this resolve, actually. We get the Scarab God back. If we counter this, we lose to a Gray Merchant. And if they just let this floating mana go away, then we get to Nightpack Ambusher. We need to counter this one, because we need the lifelink. We need the blocker in play. I will keep an untapped land on top. Wilderness Reclamation is really interesting. We're one short of being able to Reclamation plus Scarab God, so I think we just need to graveyard this. Like we'd rather draw an untapped land here. So if our opponent attacks, then we just get to block something and we don't lose any life. I guess we would actually lose 1 life if they animate the Mutavault. They could attack with the Mutavault, actually. We block a 3/3 Pack Rat, then we take 7 and we go to 2. So that's something they could do. It's a close game, a very close game. I'm enjoying it. My opponent's, I think, thinking about the same things we were just thinking about. I mean, if they had a Fatal Push as their last card, they would have just cast it and killed us. So I don't think that that's what's going to happen. Untapped land is a good draw. Counterspell is probably a good draw. Particularly a Sinister Sabotage, so we can go Scarab God plus Sabotage. We'll see what we find. It's an untapped land, so I think that we're just going to go ahead and swing in with the Gifted Aetherborn, gain that life. Although maybe we need it on defense. It's tough. I guess we do need it on defense, so let's play Scarab God, hold up a return of Murderous Rider or a Nightpack Ambusher. We do lose to a Scarab or a Grey Merchant, and attacking with Gifted Aetherborn does not change that. Get to draw a card. One more look at a Grey Merchant. I imagine if they had one last turn, they would have just cast it. So if they play one here, I imagine it was freshly drawn. Also, kind of weird that they put the Underworld Connections on the Castle Locked Way, and you'd think that you'd want to put it on your Swamp. I can't remember if they had a Swamp in play when they cast this. Maybe they didn't. I am more interested in getting the Murderous Rider out rather than the Nightpack Ambusher, because we need to gain some life. So they have a spell. They have a ton of mana with Nykthos. This makes 6. So they have 7 mana available. Thoughtseize. Yeah, I mean, we can just let this resolve, because if we want a Nightpack Ambusher, we can just Scarab God it back. Surely they don't have a Grey Merchant. Surely they would have cast it already. Yeah, Underworld Connections on their Mutavault. This is an exciting game, and plays another Pack Rat. Scarab God versus Pack Rat. 2 Scourges of Standard. Kind of funny to play like these cards against each other. So let's get back Murderous Rider. And then we're going to get back the Nightpack Ambusher in our upkeep, I think. And then ideally we'll be able to dig for a counterspell with Scarab God's Scry ability. We'll have 3 looks at a Sabotage or a Frilled Mystic. This card is just so powerful. I don't think it was tested for Standard. Okay, I'm going to go to bottom a second Scarab God. Oh, there's a little bit of a lag. Surely our opponent's not... Okay. Usually lags means our opponent's just conceding, but I would have hated for that to have happened in such an exciting game. We are going to get a Nightpack Ambusher token, because we didn't cast a spell, we just returned it, which is actually a pretty cool synergy. Let's go ahead and just get in with Murderous Rider. Because if our opponent just makes the rats big enough to block everything, at least Gifted Aetherborn is going to be able to trade for one with Death Touch. It's a close game. So if they make their pack rats say 6/6s, we get to put this on a 6/6, this on a 6/6, this on a 6/6, and this. And so then the power toughness will go down to 5, and then the Scarab God will kill a 5/5, and the Nightpack Ambusher will kill the 4/4, and then the Wolf token will have killed the 3/3. So we actually get to kill all of the rats, basically. Although I guess they can only even attack with 3 rats. I think that they can Nykthos and discard all 3 of their cards if they wanted to. But it certainly does seem that they're just more interested in drawing cards with their Underworld Connections, which is dangerous since they're losing life to our Scarab God. If we get to counter a Grey Merchant with this Frilled Mystic, we just kind of win because we get to return it with Scarab G. Yeah, that resolves. Opponent's down to 5. They're losing 3 on our upkeep. I also kind of think we probably would have just lost this game if our opponent had gone all in on the rats, and so now we get to counter Grey Merchant and return it on our upkeep and win. Exciting stuff. Scarab God seems like a nightmare for them to deal with. This card, again, just would not have been really playable with Oko in the format. Also, it was really bad against Nexus of Fate. So both of those cards were keeping the Scarab God in check and out of the format. So you can say, you could maybe say that would be a reason to not have them banned. But I generally do think if a card is so warping for a format that you just can't play 5 mana creatures, even as one as powerful as the Scarab God. Oh, dang it. Then it's good to not. I think that it was good to ban Oko and Nexus. So it looks like our opponent is trying to figure out for any way out of this. If they can kill our Scarab God, I mean, it doesn't actually do anything for them because we can return the Scarab God on their end step and just play it and immediately get back the Grey Merchant, which will drain for 7. So I think that that's probably what they're thinking about here. They might be composing their perfect salty message in chat. Which takes a lot of time and thought, so you never know. Our opponent could, but no, they've already played their land, so if they could have maybe played a second Nykthos. And they're going to cast down the Murderous Rider. Okay. This, I do not believe, saves them. Alright, so I'm glad our opponent's letting me do this for the YouTube video. Get back the Grey Merchant and trigger it. They survived this, but then they died to the Scarab God trigger. Because with they removed 2 of our devotion. Oh, did I miscount? Oh, I did miscount. We had 5 exactly. Cool. So up a game against Mono Black Devotion. Another really long game. I was hoping for some quicker matches after the last one. I like Pith Needle, names Packrat. Against Underworld Connections, you need to name the land that Underworld Connections is enchanting. You can also name Mutavault, can name Castle Locked Wain, seems good. Tireless Tracker seems good as well. Nightpack Ambusher doesn't seem very good against their spot removal. This looks pretty good. Probably just trimming a Censor here. Brazen Borrower seems good against Packrat and Underworld Connections. Pressuring their life total too. Yeah, I like how we've sideboarded here. I don't think I want any negates. Seems like our matchup is probably favorable as well. I'm going to keep this hand. It's a little slow. I don't like mulliganing against the black discard based decks though, and I think this hand is just fine to keep. And we drew the most important card to have on turn 2, Growth Spiral. Then we can Growth Spiral on turn 2. And turn 3, play Wilderness Reclamation with Sinister Sabotage up, and then dig through time the next turn. Just be off to the races. You just Silent Blood on turn 2. I remember when I first started playing Magic, I thought this card was bananas. I thought this was one of just the best cards I'd ever seen, and what I think that really says is I just like drawing cards, and the only deck I'd ever played with was black. But I thought this card was great. And then you could also target your opponent with it and make them lose 2 life to kill them. Very versatile. Yeah, I'm not gonna censor that. Pretty slow and weak start for our opponent, and one I think we're gonna really be able to capitalize on with our very explosive start. Wilderness Reclamation is just so powerful. The fact that you just get all of your mana back the turn you play it, and then after that point, it just generates more and more mana every single turn. It's certainly a card that I think is worth building around, one that really rewards you for building around it. Yeah, let's go ahead and Sinister Sabotage this. I'm pretty interested in casting the Sabotage to make Dig Through Time cheaper. Yeah, we can graveyard the Drowned Catacomb and then cycle a Sensor here. So there are 4 cards in the graveyard for Dig Through Time. Don't hate drawing Abrupt Decay. So let's go ahead and float black, green, blue, blue, blue. Then Decay the Murderous Rider, and then cast Dig Through Time for 3 mana. Ideally, we'll find a Counterspell and a Scarab God, and I can't imagine our opponent could beat that. Let's take 2 Frilled Mystics. Frilled Mystic, really, really strong card. I will Frilled Mystic and Underworld Connections. I'll counter basically anything they play here. Just get that clock in play. Beat them down with Brazen Borrower, Frilled Mystics. It's going to be good. Maybe we let this one resolve. No, we should just get the Mystic down. It would have been pretty juicy to like bounce it and the token and then be able to just deploy our Brazen Borrowers, but I think that it's just going to be correct to get the Frilled Mystic value down now. Our opponent's deck is just not very good against 2-for-1s. Scarab God off the top again, or Dig Through Time. Even Frilled Mystic, just insane. We could maybe we should have just played out a Brazen Borrower there. I don't mind not doing so. We'll see what they do. We'll see what they do. I'll Frilled Mystic this. Wait, hold on. We have all these counter spells and bounce spells in our hand. I assumed Duress would be good, but if you look closely, there's actually no non-creature spells in our hand. I was just so sure that Duress could take any card they wanted, but it actually couldn't take any of them. It's crazy. Opponent's a trooper and continues to play in the face of this really powerful hand. I'll Frilled Mystic this. Don't really want to bounce that one, although it is a sad Grey Merchant for no extra devotion. Really wish we could bounce our own Frilled Mystic with Brazen Borrower. I'll go ahead and play out 1 Brazen Borrower, but I'll keep the other one in hand, I think, just in case we need to bounce something. Opponent with 1 card left in hand. Yeah, let's just not let them get the card draw. No need to leave out Petty Theft because they couldn't play anything for us to bounce. Right, opponent conceded. Pretty clean 2-0 there, although the match took really long. Hopefully we can get some shorter games going forward. I'll see you guys for game number 3, match number 3. On the play again for round number 3. I'm going to send this one back. We have 3 black spells, no black mana. I like this hand a lot more. Very likely turn 3 Reclamation. We're going to put back I think one of the breeding pools here. So, you know, it's possible we miss on lands in the top 3 cards and can't Reclamation, but if we do, we can at least play the Sabotage. Our opponent has also mulliganed to 6, playing against not a turn 1 Thoughtseize this time. Do wish I could Abrupt Decay this, although maybe I wouldn't. I do think that just Growth Spiraling tends to be the best play to make on turn 2. Playing against the mono green ramp deck, very popular right now. I think that this is a good matchup for their reclamation deck. Frilled Mystic in particular just shines so much. Experiencing a little bit of lag. Hopefully it doesn't affect us too much. Ooh, alright. Do we miss? Come on, land please. Well, this was a 7-card hand. We could have slammed the reclamation. Looks like our opponent's stumbling a little bit too. They also mulliganed. And Sabotage's Surveil will help us find our next land drop. And I will certainly Sinister Sabotage this. I do like drawing the black source, which will let us play Reclamation and just immediately decay the elf. It seems that these mono green ramp decks are a little split on the decision to play mana elves or not. I see a lot of lists just playing Arboreal Grazers, Nissa's Pilgrimage, Elvish Reclaimer, and then I see other lists that just play the 8 mana elves, and I'm not sure which is correct. Turning off like the cheap removal does seem pretty valuable to me, but of course I'm saying that as a player who always plays with a lot of cheap removal in his decks, so it's possible that I'm wrong about that. I mean, like, Abrupt Decay is pretty dead against the other version, but against the elf version, it's, like, I think actively good. Maybe not actively good. It at least has targets. Alright, Dig Through Time is our best draw. We have other good draws as well. These are pretty blank at this point. The 5th land drop is not good, but it at least will let us cast a Scarab God if we draw one. We could cast it and get back Cavalier of Thorns immediately, which would be pretty dope. Uh-oh. Big creature. Uvenwald Hydra. Kind of a new addition to these decks. Kind of think that this is probably a little worse than Golos, but maybe I'm wrong. Golos for the 5-color land seems like a good addition to these decks. Would have liked to sabotage that. Maybe we can sabotage the next thing, but not if it has... I mean, we can if it has a cast trigger, but won't be super effective if it does. Also, I guess we're just taking 8 here. Scarab God? Off the top? And we're just dead. I'm sure our opponent will find the attack button. It's kind of an anticlimactic end. They just played an 8/8 and attacked us twice. Oh, we were drawing Dig Through Time next turn? Gross. Okay, down a game against Mono Green Ramp. I've been bringing in the Aether Gusts and the Negates, and I do certainly think the Aether Gusts are good, but I do think the Negates are better against the Negates are better against like the Ugin Hour of Promise version. I'm not sure that that's what we're playing against. I guess I would rather have Noxious Grasp than Abrupt Decay, but I don't know that I necessarily want this card. Negate at least still hits Nissa's Pilgrimage, which I'm sure my opponent has to be playing. But just thinking about it, if they're playing Elves and Uvenwald Hydras, and if they're not playing Hour of Promise and Ugin, Negate isn't very good. Maybe we play like 1 Noxious Grasp and 1 Negate to hedge. No, I do like the Grasp kills the Elves, it kills Cavalier. I think it seems okay. Neither card seems ideal, and maybe we should have just 2 more good sideboard cards for this matchup. I do think we want to remove all of the Abrupt Decays, but other than that, I think this matchup is fine. Okay, I'll keep this hand. If they have a turn 1 elf, we can at least bounce it. See if our opponent chooses to keep 7. They do keep 7, so we'll keep this and put back the Overgrown Tomb. Play Breeding Pool tapped and pass. No turn 1 elf. They might still have an elf in their hand, and they just couldn't play it on turn 1 because their castle came into play tapped. That is a possibility. I do like the reclamation draw. Again, if this was a 7-card hand, like I think we would have, if we didn't have to put back that land and miss on reclamation, the turn we did, like I think we would have been much better off that last game. Oh, they had 2 elves, so they just didn't have basic forest in their opening hand. I guess they drew that this turn. Another reclamation, awkward. If we can hit our land drop next turn, I think we're going to be in good shape. If we don't, I don't think we're going to be in good shape. There's Nissa's Pilgrimage. Maybe we should just be playing more Aether Gusts. Answers Elves and Nissa's Pilgrimage. Cool. We hit the land drop, which is good. So this turn we can hold up Frilled Mystic, and then next turn we can play our second Reclamation and spend just 8 mana for a Dig Through Time. Can't also hold up a counterspell, but we also get a top deck. Ooh, Worldbreaker would be tough here. That's what it looks like. Yeah. Yeah, Worldbreaker is pretty good against us. Let's go ahead and Frilled Mystic this Worldbreaker. Guess I'm not super optimistic about my chances here. I could see even maybe playing Summary Dismissal to answer like these big Eldrazi. Seems like that would be a really good sideboard card for these matchups. They already have so much mana in play. I think I'm probably more interested in just casting this Brazen Borrower and trying to kill our opponent with some flyers. Worldbreakers do have reach, but they can't replay Worldbreaker this turn, I don't believe. Oh, they actually could if they played a land. Cavalier of Thorns. Yikes. All of these guys have reach. Oh no, they have another big thing to play? It's turn 5. Wow. Well, they're down to 1 card in hand. I guess we just have to outvalue them now. I'm going to go ahead and just bounce an elf. I guess we should have bounced the elf that attacked us. That was in all of their... They cast 2 Cavaliers on turn 5. This is kind of an awkward draw, because we can't dig and hold up Frilled Mystic, but I think we need to dig anyways. Our opponent can return their Worldbreaker and cast it this turn, so we just need to get this dig cast, and probably looking for like land plus Scarab God. Oh man. Well, I'll take Drowned Catacomb, Aether Gust, I guess. A lot of times I think people think of Dig Through Time as like a double demonic tutor, but it's not quite that good. It can certainly be clunky, or it can miss. Not that it's a bad card by any means. So they get back their Worldbreaker by sacrificing a land, and they're going to replay it. I did think that this matchup was favorable, but I don't think I played against the Elvish Mystic Cavalier version. I think we're better set up against the Hour of Promise Ugin version. This seems tougher. They get to sack and find an Emrakul. Or sorry, or an Ulamog. I guess they could get Emrakul, but yeah, they get an Ulamog. I think we're just kind of dead. This has reach. Yeah, this ramp deck looks really good. I think it looks really good. It's possible that, like, I'm like mentally reevaluating the matchup right now, and it seems horrible. And it's possible I was just running hot, but I was beating up on it yesterday. I was like 5-0 against it yesterday or something like that. My wish was granted when I asked for a shorter match though. So we're 2-1. I'll see you guys for round number 4. Alright, so we are on the play for match number 4. I'm going to mulligan this hand. Opponent is a fan. I'm going to keep this. And let's put back Abrupt Decay. I think we're going to just Growth Spiral on turn 2. I did feel like pretty good against the red decks, which surprised me. I thought that I was going to be not favored against them, but the more and more I play Pioneer, the more it seems like the red decks are just kind of underpowered, and that really has surprised me. That really has surprised me about the Pioneer format. I did think that the red decks were going to be really good when when the format was first announced, and they just haven't been putting up very good results at all. So I don't really know what to make of that exactly, but like part of me thinks that there are so many different tools to play with the mono red decks that no one has necessarily figured out the best combination, and I do think that that is true to some extent. But I kind of think the real truth is there's a decent amount of incidental life gain in the format, and the best one drops, Soulscarred Mage and Monastery Swiftspear, are not as powerful in Pioneer as they are in Modern because there aren't as many 1-mana burn spells. So you end up with a deck that's just a little bit underpowered. I am pretty scared of this Rampaging Ferocidon, although we are going to get to double block it pretty well. Ferocidon and Karizev is kind of a non-blow, but it's not that big a deal, obviously. The Abrupt Decay we put back was really important. Of course, we were in the blind. We didn't know the Abrupt Decay was going to be important, but I feel like the last 3 times we've mulliganed in this league, we ended up really wanting the card we put back, just like that one land that we kept missing, or now the Abrupt Decay. I'm gonna go and play the Nightpack Ambusher and double block this Rampaging Ferocidon. If our opponent has a burn spell to shrink like our Scarab God or our Ferocidon, it's like we're still very likely to kill the Ferocidon, even if they shrink either of our creatures. And if they kill the Scarab God, we just get to get it back and then play it with the ability to activate it in the same turn. So, like, I mean, even 2 burn spells doesn't save their Ferocidon. I've been pretty impressed with Nightpack Ambusher. I don't think it's, necessary for the deck, and I don't think it's something that you 100% need to have in this build, but I think it's pretty good. Okay, so they decided to just kill the Ambusher. So let's go ahead and get back the Ambusher in our upkeep. I don't think I'm very interested in getting back the Ferocidon. You get to scry 1 with a bottom Watery Grave. Play Breeding Pool. And then attack with the Scarab God, and then we can play Brazen Borrower. We get our Nightpack Ambusher trigger, which is a pretty cool synergy. This didn't come up I think at all in my testing, getting back Nightpack Ambusher with Scarab God and then getting to activate it the turn you bring it back. But that's kind of cool because when you bring it back with Scarab God, obviously it's not a spell; it's an ability. I don't know, maybe we will get back Rampaging Frostodon and just try to kill our opponent. Just get back Rampaging Frostodon in response to a creature that they cast. Kind of think I like that. Seems a little counterintuitive. Like Frostodon is kind of bad to be in play for us, but they're just going to take so much damage here. We can even attack with this Lumbering Falls. Frostodon dealt them 2. We get to scry 2, put them down to 10 with the Scarab God. I'll draw a Frilled Mystic. And then fire up with my Lumbering Falls and right-click attack with all. Cool. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I do think looking at the deck, it just kind of seems like it would be bad against mono-red aggro, but in my experience, the deck turns the corner and stabilizes really quickly with Wilderness Reclamation. And that's exactly what we saw here. So kind of surprisingly good against aggro. So these are the 4 cards I bring in against mono red. I usually like to go down on Censors. Usually like to go down on Brazen Borrowers, and I've been cutting like the Gear Hulk in this matchup. I'm not sure that this is the correct configuration, but this is what I've liked. I do kind of think maybe you should trim 1 Sinister Sabotage for 1 and keep in the Gear Hulk, but I'm not sure. 6 mana spells against red decks are usually not where you want to be. But let's submit like this and go ahead and go to game number 2. This hand is a little weird. We don't have double green for our Frilled Mystic, and we also only have 1 green source for our Scavenging Ooze. We do have a Reclamation, which is really important. Our opponent is also mulligan to 6, so I'm usually like inclined to keep functional hands when your opponent mulligans to 6 and just kind of trade 1 for 1 with your functional hand while your opponent has fewer resources than you do. I think this hand is okay enough to keep at least, but needs a little help from the top of the deck. Turn 1 castle. Censor is interesting. I do think that we're going to need to cycle the Censor, because again, the deck our draw just does need a little bit of help. So I'll go ahead and just cycle that on turn 1. No 2-drop. They might have like a Bone Crusher Giant here. I think that they do have a Bone Crusher Giant. That's just kind of the feeling I'm getting. So let's hold up Censor. I think that we're going to get stomped end of turn. Yeah, and then we can either counter the Giant with Censor, which will be good, or counter like a Goblin Rabblemaster. I did want to cycle that Censor, but I think it's like fine that we didn't. Yeah, I'm going to go Spiral now. If we hit a green source, I'll hold up Abrupt Decay, and if we don't, I would obviously won't because we can't. Oh, should have played tapped Watery Grave. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite us, but that was a mistake, and a mistake that could be costly against the mono-red aggro deck. Yeah, so we can Abrupt Decay the Bone Crusher Giant in our instep, and then hold up Frilled Mystic, and then turn the corner by, using Scavenging Ooze and our excess of green mana that we have with Wilderness Reclamation. So I think that we're in a good spot here. I think we're in a good spot. I'll counter that. More Ooze food. Ooh, Frilled Mystic was a good draw too. Frilled Mystic has really impressed me. I think that I'm inclined to do some more brewing with this card in Pioneer, Frilled Mystic. Card that hasn't seen a ton of play, but again, that's certainly due to its restrictive casting cost. I've also liked Ooze alongside Wilderness Reclamation. I don't think it's a card we want in our main deck, but could maybe make its way in there. Cool. Opponent concedes, and we ascend to 3-1. Another quick match, and we'll be back for round number 5 to see if we can get that 4-1. See you there. Okay, we are on the draw for the last match of this league. I like this hand. Ooh, Blooming Marsh, attune with Aether. Getting a mountain, very cool. I don't know if this is the same person, but I did play against a 4-color energy deck last week. That was really, really cool. It was like our one loss of the league. We're playing like Glintsleeve Siphoner and Rogue Refiners, and I think they were playing Glorybringer too. There was a lot of really powerful cards. And you know, one of the big problems with mid-range decks in Pioneer is the mana for more than 2-color decks is not great, and I think that's why you've seen me gravitate towards decks like blue-white control and green-black mid-range, just because the mana on those decks it's really smooth and not painful. But Tune with Aether solves a large amount of the problems that you have with the mana requirements in your deck. Didn't want to bounce a Rogue Refiner, I don't think. We'll just trade a Frilled Mystic for it in a couple of turns. Maybe we could have, just for tempo's sake, but it's pretty tempo. It's pretty bad card advantage to bounce a Rogue Refiner. I'm not going to counter a Gilded Goose. I will Petty Theft at end of turn if they don't play anything else. I wonder if our opponent is holding up a counter spell. This is game 1. I don't know that these colors would main deck a card like Censor, Disdainful Stroke, but I've seen weirder things, and if they do counter this Wilderness Reclamation, our hand just kind of falls apart. But I didn't think it wasn't very likely, and looks like they don't have it. They could have also maybe had a Brazen Borrower of their own, but they didn't. I think it was certainly correct to just jam there. And I would like to have Frilled Mystic a creature here, although I don't think I'm going to Frilled Mystic a Gilded Goose. But I would love to just counter a creature, then slam the Scarab God and have the ability to activate it next turn while holding up a counter spell. Oh, it's a Niv Mizzet. Well, I guess we get to Scarab God back and Niv Mizzet. Maybe that can be the thumbnail for the video if I figure out how to make thumbnails. That'll be pretty dope. We get the Enter the Battlefield trigger, which can find us a Frilled Mystic, a Scarab God, and an Abrupt Decay, potentially. No need to do it immediately. Yeah, the ability to like turn 5 play Scarab God and activate it is so powerful. It's one of the best mid-range plans I think you can have in Pioneer, and I think that this version is better than the Fires versions. I was messing around with I think I said this in the deck tech, but I was messing around with a Fires version of the Scarab God deck with like Nicol Bolas the Ravager and Scarab God. But I think this is better. The opponent just concedes. Oh no, our thumbnail! Ah, damn it. That's okay. I don't know how to make thumbnails anyways. Alright, how do we want to sideboard? Dispute is good against Rogue Refiner and Nicol Bolas, or Niv Mizzet. I think we can bring in a couple copies of that. Abrupt Decay kills Gilded Goose. It kills Rogue Refiner, but I think we can at least trim one copy. Brazen Borrower seems like it's not going to be like very effective in this matchup. I imagine Negate's going to be good. Maybe trim a Censor. I usually go down on Censors. It's a good card to trim. This looks pretty good. I'm going to just run it like this. It's kind of funny. We're playing against the 5-color value mid-range deck, and the Niv Mizzet decks historically just chew up other mid-range decks, but I think that we're favored. I feel good about this matchup, so hopefully we can pull off a 4-1 for this video. This hand is a little bit flooded on Wilderness Reclamation. I'm gonna go ahead and send it back. I'll keep this hand. I think we're gonna put back a Dig Through Time. Need to draw a couple lands off the top, but I think it's better than going to 5. Our opponent also mulliganed. This is a really slow hand, but again, I do think that this hand is better than going to 5, and our opponent's deck is very slow. I played Woodland Cemetery over Drowned Catacombs just because we have more untapped blue sources than untapped green sources. Opponent is playing Growth Spirals themselves, which may means they can cast Niv Mizzet underneath the Frilled Mystic. Not underneath Sinister Sabotage if we untap and draw an untapped blue source. Oh, it can't beat a Teferi here. No way. We do have, 3 Abrupt Decays to draw into. This was certainly a card I was concerned about. It's going to be tough to beat this one. They go ahead and cash it in and draw a card, which I think is correct here. They get a Gilded Goose too. We draw another 4-drop. Might have a quick game 2 here. Yeah. If our opponent shows any sign of strength here, I'm pretty likely to concede. Like, we have to draw running lands. We have to draw like 2 lands in a row and have our opponent have no pressure at all. Which is possible. Like, that could happen, and it will happen in some universes. And it does look like our opponent doesn't have pressure. And we drew a land, so I'm glad we didn't concede. We're still... Teferi is very good against our flash deck, obviously. Certainly like the main card keeping a deck like this in check. We do have lots of answers to it. That was very intentional in my deck building process to have 4 Abrupt Decays and counter spells that can counter a turn 2 or 3 Teferi. Okay, let's put our best foot forward here with our Nightpack Ambusher. Sadly, Wilderness Reclamation does not let us cast spells while there's a Teferi in play, but we could theoretically activate the Scarab God. Oh, I guess our opponent just really doesn't have very much. They could have a second Teferi in their hand is one card they could have. Knight of Autumn. That can trade with the Nightpack Ambusher, sadly. A land would not be a bad draw. That's a good draw. So we could Abrupt Decay the Knight of Autumn. Man, I really wish we just had 1 more mana. If we had 1 more mana, we could play Abrupt Decay on the Teferi, just hold up Sinister Sabotage. It's also crazy that our opponent just doesn't have anything. I'm just going to Decay the Teferi now. Hope our opponent doesn't have anything for 1 more turn. I guess this is bad if their last card is another Teferi, which is kind of likely. They should probably be sacking some of these food tokens for life. Play a land. They have 1 card left. It's a spell. Sultai mana? Oh no, it's Niv Mizzet. That's a really good last spell. Damn it. I mean, I'm sure that's what they drew this turn. They can play their... They revealed the Teferi. Uh-oh. They can also play a Scarab God of their own here. If they don't play Teferi, I think that we're actually going to be okay. Oh, they don't have the energy to play. Oh, they do. They can just sack a food. Okay, tough stuff. Close. We're not gonna be able to win at this point with the Teferi and Niv-Mizzet in play. So very weird, a weirdly close game. I'm going to go ahead and go to game 3. I think that Mystical Dispute is looking kind of nuts to me. I think Brazen Borrower is actually looking really bad. So let's do something like this and go ahead and go to game 3. This is such an awkward hand. We have to mulligan. Just don't have the blue source. And this hand's not great, but it's at least almost functional. So it would be a sad way to end this in this league. We should put back the Drowned Catacomb because we need double green for Frilled Mystic and Nightpack Ambusher. Our opponent has mulligan to 6 as well. If we can top deck a... I mean, there's lots of good top decks. Just any counterspell. Ghost Spiral is fine. Nightpack Ambusher is good. Frilled Mystic is fine. Mystical Dispute is a good draw too. It's basically any cheap interactive spell, so we don't just get way behind on tempo. That's what we were looking for here. It's got Thought Erasure. We'll go ahead and Mystical Dispute that. Hopefully they're not clearing the way for Teferi, but Teferi is very, very good against us. Cast a Tune with Aether, so maybe they do have the Teferi. Yeah, they got a Plains. They just didn't have the mana to cast it. So if we could draw a counterspell off the top. Yeah, I've got 2 of a kind, or we have 2 pairs here, which is not ideal. I do think our opponent has Teferi, and we don't have the counterspell anymore for it because they use their Thought Erasure. They're tapping this for green, blue, white. Knight of Autumn. I'm actually relieved that it's Knight of Autumn instead of Teferi. I mean, maybe they have both, but man, Teferi is such a nightmare for this deck. And we drew a counterspell. Okay, I think we're in it. So I don't think I talked about this in the deck tech, but Sabotage plays well with Dig because it can put an extra card in the yard. It is possible we need more like Censors or even Opts in this deck to fuel Dig Through Time. But I don't know how necessary that is. Like, Wilderness Reclamation, you can just hardcast Dig Through Time in this deck, and it feels pretty reasonable to do that. Opponent's deck is all sorcery speed. They're a Fires deck. Don't think that they're going to have very many counterspells. Like, they might play 1 or 2 Mystic Dispute. Yeah, I'll graveyard this, and then we can cast a Dig Through Time for 4 mana. Then hopefully dig into like a Frilled Mystic. Just get this ball rolling. Don't think we need to decay right now. Cool. We don't have the mana for Scarab God right now, so I think I'm just going to take Frilled Mystic and Nightpack Ambusher, and then we can Ambusher if we want to, if we don't need to Frilled Mystic anything. That was a pretty good Dig Through Time. Basically had dealer's choice of whatever card we wanted. It is very important here to have a counterspell up for a Niv-Mizzet, though. Wilderness Reclamation just makes so much mana. The card is really, really strong. I gotta counter that one. Oh. After years and years of Magic Online, I still don't always tap correctly. Certainly one of the improvements from Arena to Magic Online is the auto tapper. And the auto tapper is pretty good on there. I'm not personally a huge fan of Arena. I just know like the animations and stuff it's just not really for me. I've never been one for that kind of interface, but I do think it's really good that it brings a lot of people to the game. I think that is really, really important. I have a lot of friends who like would really never consider playing Magic, and now that like Arena is just like a cheap, easy, accessible way for them to play it, they're like getting into it. So I do think Arena is good for the game, but I don't think it's for boomers like me. All right, let's go ahead and dig with the ability to Sinister Sabotage. I think that we really want to find a counterspell here. We did not find one. We found Mystical Dispute, which can counter a Niv Mizzet, which is the most important thing. And then Gearhulk can flashback Dig through time. And we can also decay the Night of Autumn if we want to. Although I won't do that till end of turn just in case they have a second Teferi that we can't dispute. They do have a second Teferi. Do we want to dispute this? I think what we do, because if we don't dispute this, they get to bounce their Night of Autumn. Okay, they don't have double white. Yeah, let's dispute this. I think that this is fine. They also can't bounce the Wilderness Reclamation. I mean, they can, but if they do, then they risk losing their Teferi to Frilled Mystic. It's a good game, pretty interesting. Games 2 and 3 have been pretty weird, I think. Neither of our draws have lined up very well. Yeah, it's super weird what they're supposed to do with Teferi. I kind of think they're just supposed to tick up. I mean, I guess they can just bounce the Wreck and plan on trading Night of Autumn for Frilled Mystic, but we have Abrupt Decay for the Night of Autumn. We do need to draw a land in order for that to be good, I guess, because if we don't draw land and we decay the Night of Autumn, then we can't do anything else. So I guess bouncing the Wreck makes the most sense to me. They could be thinking that, hey, if I bounce the Frilled Mystic, they can't really do anything with their Wreck mana. So land off the top would be really good for us. Would be really, really good. I mean, that can counter a Niv Mizzet if they don't have a land drop, so we'll see what happens. Don't really have any other lines here besides Decay the Night and Attack Teferi. Opponent has 2 cards in hand, drawing up to 3. This feels like the pivotal turn to me. I'm feeling pretty good that was a Gilded Goose. Feeling pretty good. So Mystic Dispute's certainly kind of dead at this point in the game, but one thing we can do here is Gearhulk and Flashback Dig through time this turn. And we can probably find a Scarab God and a Counterspell, which would be exactly what we're looking for. I say we can probably find it because we've already cast a Dig through time, and like we didn't see a counterspell off of our last dig, or we've already cast 2. So I'm just kind of thinking that it's likely we hit one, but Dig through time is not quite double Demonic Tutor. Okay, yeah, no Scarab God. I think we take Frilled Mystic in second Reclamation. There's also not an Abrupt Decay to answer a third Teferi, but we can also attack another Teferi if they have one. Huh. They're sacking the food token. Is this like... Oh, okay. Double white for Supreme Verdict. That's fine if they don't have a big follow-up and they played a land, no more cards in hand, so I think we're gonna win. I think we're gonna win. Yeah. They don't really have spells that like just get through counter spells that I can think of besides Supreme Verdict. Okay, let's go ahead and cast Growth Spiral. And then we can just get the Nightpack Ambusher into play. And then untap all of our lands. Cool. Opponent has had enough. I'll go ahead and open these treasure chests and call it a stream. Maybe give a couple of thoughts on the deck. Open to Garruk, Cursed Huntsman. Not too much else. Alright, so just a few closing thoughts on the deck before we go. I think that I would probably like to switch out the second basic island for a third Overgrown Tomb going forward. Just help add more black and green sources. It felt a little awkward at times today. I also think that I would like to have some copies of Summary Dismissal in my sideboard, but I'm not sure what I'd be switching cards out for. But other than that, I've been really liking the deck. I certainly recommend picking it up. I hope you learned something today, and I will see you next time.